enemy forces, and to help leaders in the theater of operations know if their deployed troops are alert enough to realize the intensity of whatever situations they're about to face. Experiments have been run with soldiers whose brain waves are seen by their commanders via wireless computers. When a commander knows a soldier has gone into tunnel vision from information overload, he will know that he has to count on someone else for key actions and commands during an attack. An earlier project, called Augmented Cognition, AugCog for short, gave birth to something Cruise is working on currently. That is the Neurotechnology for Intelligence Analysts, NIA program. Phase 2 of the NIA project began recently. Honeywell's work is being augmented with participation from Teledyne Scientific Imaging and from Columbia University, which is aggressively building its neuroscience reputation. Phase 3 is expected to produce a prototype that intelligence agencies will road test. According to Honeywell, the technology is nearly ready for operational use. Altogether, AugCog and NIA research has linked several corporate and academic teams with the 4 different military services: Daimler Chrysler with the U.S. Marine Corps, Lockheed Martin with the Navy, Boeing with the Air Force, and Honeywell's team of some 11 industry and university partners with the Army. One of the most brain-twisting and talked-about areas of recent research, for instance, is something called the Active Denial System, or ADS, which was demonstrated in late January 2007 at Moody Air Force Base in Georgia. ADS is the byproduct of larger ongoing research looking for technology that could delete and then replace a person's memories. That last sentence is guaranteed to make any true science fiction fan remember at least 3 recent mainstream movies with variations on the same theme. Another on-the-horizon reality actually seems like a direct lift from science fiction, specifically from Minority Report. And in Science Fact, a team of neuroscientists has actually developed a brain scan-based way of finding hints about what a subject is intending to do. The scientists built their research on findings from earlier studies that used fMRI to understand what goes on in the human brain when the topic at hand is racial prejudice, violence, or lying. In the March 6, 2008 edition of Nature, scientists from the University of California, Berkeley, reported development of a method for decoding patterns in visual areas of the brain and using them to know what a subject is looking at. The scary potentials of this announcement are easy to conjure. By exposing subjects to visual images and then recording brain activity, the UC Berkeley researchers first figured out a number of activation patterns. Then they built a mathematical model, an algorithm. Information from the patterns makes it possible for the researchers to look at brain activation and then make a well-informed guess about what kind of visual information has caused it to happen. Moreno's 1999 book, Undue Risk, compiled all he could gather about secret experiments sanctioned in the name of defense. Moreno reports that Department of Defense has around $68 billion to use annually on scientific research and development. The slice of the Pentagon's black operations budget that is earmarked for research and development he estimates at $6 billion or more. At the end of a 2001 Dana Foundation conference on neuroethics, held in San Francisco, Moreno found himself raising his hand in front of 100 neuroscientists to ask, "How come no one here said anything about how this applies to national defense?" He left the conference determined to start learning about what was happening regarding possible applications of neuroscience in defense circles. First, he contacted friends who were neuroscientists. No one would speak on the record. They all either were receiving DARPA funding or very much wanted to. But a few were willing to speak off the record, and they helped him get a general sense of some directions being pursued. Next, he Googled DARPA and neuroscience. Thousands of pages appeared. A 2008 search registered 152,000 hits. Many of those pages were RFPs, which stands for Requests for Proposals. These documents ask military contractors to say if they are able to build certain devices DARPA wants to have, and also ask how much time and funding they would need. By mentally translating these RFPs from military speak to English, Moreno learned more about what DARPA was hoping to achieve. So we are now in an arms race to create the next generation of unimaginably potent weapons, and also in a race to contain the current generation of destructive capacity. That generation may seem outdated, but it's still the most convincing display of instant human-created hell we've ever seen. Imagine an advanced version of Honeywell's image triage system. It includes group behavioral analysis software and individual emotion recognition algorithms that key off micro-emotional tics we all exhibit. Intelligence analysts and warrior athletes will scour real-time surveillance feeds from satellites, unmanned predators, robotic insects, and other ingenious surveillance systems in their efforts to seek and destroy enemy combatants. We will eventually see the rise of NURO weapons aimed at shifting the emotional and cognitive capacity of individuals and small populations. Memory bombs that give individuals short-term amnesia or electronic sleep-inducing weapons may seem in the realm of science fiction. But before the advent of atomic weapons, so was the idea that 140,000 inhabitants of Hiroshima, Japan, could be wiped off the face of the planet with a single bomb. As more and more biology and chemistry labs focus on developing next-generation brain drugs, other researchers working on a different piece of the neurotechnology revolution are designing implantable medical devices that interact with the brain through tiny electrical impulses. Advancing nanotechnology manufacturing techniques will eventually shrink the size of the implantable devices. Surgeries to implant them will become less invasive. Over the next 2 decades, the impact of neuro devices will be profound. In one way, BCIs, computers either accept commands from the brain or send signals to it, for example, to restore vision. Two-way BCIs would allow brains and external devices to exchange information in both directions. As you heard in the previous chapter, there is tremendous interest among the defense community in developing this capability, and plenty of money to help make it happen. Like the gigantic shifts of humanity's past, our emerging neuro society is a wild card. It holds enormous, seemingly equal promise for inducing an age of bliss or a living nightmare. The reason so much more is at stake in this epochal change is that our newest tools will give us nothing less than increasingly precise control over the most powerful factor in our lives, our own minds. Here is what I believe to be the overarching question. Does a citizen's right to privacy include his or her inner domain of thought? Depending on how we answer questions like these, the emerging technologies may be used to control us and keep us in cultural or economic bondage.